All right, folks. So we are not in the CX50. We are in something else. I did not switch cars, I promise. This is going to be a loaner for the next day or so. With that, we are in a CX30. Now, in this case, in terms of the actual trim, I honestly don't know which one I have, but it is going to be, wow, am I going through puberty? But it is going to be something that does involve the turbo engine. So it could be a premium plus model with the turbo. It also, could be something higher. But with that, this is a pretty loaded CX30. Do I like it? I have to say, I actually really do. Would it prompt me to trade in my CX50 for this? No, I like the CX50 better. But in this regard, this is a very, very, very neat vehicle. I really like it. I do have the 2.5 liter turbocharged 4 in this. So it makes over 200 horsepower. I don't know the exact figures of it, but with that, it's also mated to a 6-speed transmission. Now, in terms of the power, I have a feeling this does not have premium in it, and there are power differentials between 87 octane and 91. But in this regard, it's still plenty fast and it does a decent job. In terms of the interior, it is, of course, a little bit different than that of the CX50, but it is overall really nice. I do like the fact that it's simple in application here with the climate controls. Also, the cup holders are down here. I'll forgive it because my CX50 is the same way. All of this pretty much looks the same, although this one does not have my drive. And then also with that, what I like about this is this storage space, but then also this here, when you close it, it actually slides forward so you can cover your belongings. It actually is pretty decent here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the way the engine functions. Pretty decent torque curve. It's kind of like riding a wave. It's pretty cool. I do like it. Honestly, I like... Would I have gotten a turbo in my CX50? Maybe. Would I think a turbo would be something beneficial long term? No. They require more maintenance, which is why I actually went with the naturally aspirated 2.5 in my CX50. But I'm not going to lie, turbo engines are fun. They have a lot of nice torque. And with that, with the 6-speed transmission in this, it actually pairs really well. Comfort-wise, this car is pretty comfortable. Interior is a little bit small, but with that, of course, the primary purpose of this was to serve kind of like a middle ground from a sedan to something like the CX5, which, of course, the CX50 was not out at the time that this car was released. So in that case, I would say primary purpose was to bridge between the Mazda 3 and the CX5. And it did a good job. Honestly, it's comfortable. For one, it feels big enough. Is it super large? No, I wouldn't expect it to be, but it does a decent job in terms of providing the driver the comforts that they need. If someone were to use this as more of like a passenger vehicle, this is where I could see it falling on its face. The back seat room is pretty tight, but with that, of course, it's to be expected. Cargo room's okay though, and with that, it does have a nice cargo cover. Door panels are made of nice materials. This does have the Bose system in it. And also the A-pillars are, they are plastic, which of course tend to scratch, but the visibility in this car is actually pretty decent as well. So honestly, I really like it. With that, is it the first thing I would pick? No, obviously I picked a CX50. But in this case, if somebody needs something that's economical for one, additionally also lower priced, and maybe not as big as a CX50, this honestly would be a very decent vehicle to consider. Steering wheel is exactly the same in terms of controls. This one does have the lane keeping assist, so I have a feeling, honestly, it is going to be past the premium trim, but it does have the lane centering and also adaptive cruise control and such. Mine has adaptive cruise control, and additionally it will nudge you, but it doesn't necessarily correct the steering behavior, which I had that in my Tucson, but I didn't really like it. So in that case, I'm not really too upset that I don't have that in my car, because I found it to be a little bit more intrusive than anything. but with that, what was it called? This car does have it on the steering controls. My button here is actually blank. The heads-up display honestly is a bit nauseating. I personally am not a fan of it because it gets really confusing. Now, granted, it just tells me how fast I'm going, but in this regard, of course, you know, it's something that's always there, and I do find it to be distracting. I tend to find myself looking more at the hood and driving from the perspective of the hood rather than looking up. And in this case, of course, one of the common mistakes newer drivers make is they drive off the hood and don't see what's in front of them. And unfortunately, with the heads-up display, I find that to be more or less invading some driving habits that I'm personally not used to, because with that, of course, I look much further ahead. So it can get a little annoying. I personally don't like it, but in this regard, it's not uncomfortable. I mean, it's one of those where I could turn it off, I'm sure, if I needed to, but I'm just gonna leave everything kind of the same because I'm only gonna really have this car until tomorrow. Power-wise though, I mean, it is good. Passing power is pretty adequate. With that, I like the torque that this motor does provide. You see, the thing is that the transmission's a little clumsier in that of the naturally aspirated models because it simply just doesn't have the torque that these turbocharged engines have. So I noticed I could stay in a higher gear and the car is not going to struggle as much. And with that, of course, it can use the wave of that gear to keep me going instead of needing to downshift. So that's pretty nice. Don't know what this person is doing. They're just riding in the bike lane. Let's go ahead and just take a look at the power real quick. Ooh, that is swift. It's swift. It's not super fast, but it is swift. That was like a very nice wave. It was sweet. Transmission's responsive, I do like that, although I found the transmission in my CX30 to be responsive as well. But with that, I really do like the way this behaves. Let's try that again. I really like it, no lie. I do have the flappy paddles in the back, so I can change gears if I want to. I'm not gonna push it too hard. The car barely has any miles on it. Let me just check and see how many it does have. Oh shoot, it only has 234 miles. Yeah, we're not gonna push this thing super hard. But, you know, with that, let's just go ahead and do a mid-range torque curve. Handling is nice. Definitely can take corners pretty well. It looks like this one also has the moving headlights. So basically it's got a lazy eye. Okay, and then go ahead and see, yeah, it has moving headlights. Moving headlights actually improve the safety ratings of these vehicles, by the way, in terms of the Highway Institute. So let's go ahead now, get on the highway, and torque. Does fall on its face a little bit. Just a little bit after 4,500 RPMs. Still comfortable though. Nice cruising RPM too. With that, I notice it's a little bit lower than that of my CX30. The cruising RPMs I see on the turbocharged models may be a little bit lower. But with that, let's go ahead and pass. No downshift needed, still has plenty of low end torque to do so. Whoops. Okay. And then the steering wheel, I notice, is a little bit lighter on this compared with my CX30, so I'm not really used to it. So now, let's go ahead and turn on the driving assist. Oops. Okay, driving assist with cruise control. And the car is now going to do things for me. It has steering assist, which I guess it's nice, but you know, with that, Not gonna lie, I personally have never really liked the steering assist of these vehicles. Not just Mazda, but just in general. My Hyundai came with it standard when I had it, and I personally didn't like it. Mazda's is not very intrusive, but even then, I didn't really like it. My husband's Subaru, though, like his decides to shoot you into the next lane over, and then afterwards, it says, "Oh, you suck at driving. Let's go ahead and now just disable the entire system." So, with that, of course, now I'm not really noticing it to do much in terms of the lane keeping. Maybe it just helps in terms of steering, but I'm not seeing anything that's gonna like make a huge difference in this car's steering capabilities. At least from first glance. I wouldn't personally use this, but some people may. That's fine. But with that, here we are. So now we are going to slow down here because this is like Cop Nation. But cruising wise, pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie. In this regard, of course, one thing of note is that the CX30 is a little bit louder on the road than this car. And also what I've noticed on the CX50 is there's more of a hum when you're at 55 miles an hour. This has been reported by some people in which some people have changed out their differentials with no resolution. Both of my CX50s had that noise and never gave me a problem. So in this regard, I don't know if it's just something that is normal for that type, but I don't hear it on this car. But with that, of course, two different models, and with that also probably two different areas of manufacturing. So with that, here's the CX30. Honestly, a nice vehicle. Overall, I actually really like it, just in the few hours I've had with it. Back seat room is going to be tight, but of course, if you need this more for like something like to commute with, let's say for example you don't have any kids but you just want a small SUV that's similar to maybe the Jeep Renegade that you've been driving that has a bad transmission, or a Jeep Compass, or even remotely like a Honda CR-V, or even I would go as far to say, or not CR-V, what's the small one? The HR-V, but to go as far as to say as the CR-V, this actually is a pretty decent vehicle. Plus also with that, no CVT. You still get a step-geared automatic transmission, which is phenomenal. So with that being said, decent vehicle overall. If you guys are in the market for one of these, or if you're in the market for a CX50, I would suggest to go with a CX50 or a CX5 for like size purposes. But if you wanted something small and economical, this is an excellent option. And honestly, it drives so nicely. It's not intrusive with noise, but it's also a smooth ride. It's not like the smoothest, but it's smooth to get you where you're going. And with that, it's not going to feel like you're bumping into everything or every single pothole known to man. So with that, folks, I do want to thank you for watching and taking this drive with me. This is the first time I've ever driven a CX30 that was turbocharged. So in this case, pretty nice overall. But yeah, I'll catch you guys soon. Have a good one. Please be well.